Test weights are holding up fairly well. Now we'll see what happens after the rain last night. The test weight started in the 60 to 62, maybe 63 pounds, so that's really good.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Comstock channel. I'm Marlon Bowling with you. Thanks again for joining us and supporting our channel. We continue to grow thanks to your help. Make sure you like these videos, subscribe to the videos by clicking on that bell icon. And as always, make sure you share these videos with others as well as we continue to spread the word. My guest today happens to be Aaron Harries, and Aaron is Vice President of Research and Operations for Kansas Wheat. And Aaron, I had a chance to visit with you here because I believe it rained in Kansas, and some of the custom harvesters are maybe getting a much needed break. They've been working pretty hard. If you would, could you give us an update as far as how the harvest is going, what you're finding out as far as yields and test weights and that sort of thing, and what kind of impact the weather so far has had on the Kansas wheat harvest?
Well, the weather had an impact early on because of the drought and dry conditions we had this spring that were way ahead of schedule on harvest. That was up until last night when we did have pretty widespread rain across most of the state. With the exception of maybe far northwest, west central Kansas and southeast Kansas. But yeah, we're about 30%, probably close to 35% complete with harvest, and that would compare to, about 7% complete. So we've really stayed ahead of schedule, and I don't think anybody's complaining to kind of knock that harvest out a little bit faster. The rains last night were pretty widespread, and it's going to give folks at least a day and maybe 2 days off before we can get back in the field. So far, I think we've been pleasantly surprised with the crop. So much variability. I think we probably say that every year, but this year it's even more the case. Even within the field, the variability is amazing. You can see within the same field, 20 bushels an acre to 80 bushels an acre. So it really depends upon where you are. But overall, I think the yield reports have been a little surprising. The exception is being kind of central Kansas, the heart of central Kansas, where the drought was the worst. We're kind of seeing what we expected there and fairly poor yields and spots. And of course, we got the hail this time of the year also. Hail storms have been, in my opinion, maybe a little bit more widespread than they normally are. Unfortunately, we were affected by a large hailstorm here in Manhattan. For those of you who don't know, we're at the Kansas Wheat Innovation Center. We have a greenhouse complex here, and it did not respond well to the tennis ball size hail that we had last Thursday evening. So we've had a little damage on the wheat research side of things, but also there's been some farmers out there who've lost a few acres to hail, and that's not uncommon, but it never ceases to be disappointing when you're ready to harvest a field and see it wiped out by hail.
Yeah, it's always so devastating when it can just obliterate one farm and a mile away and not be touched. Yeah, it is kind of hard emotionally for sure. Um, Earlier this year, we talked about the fear of frost damage or freeze damage in the wheat crop. Did that turn out to be a big deal?
Well, it's super hard to measure that, and when we saw it during the wheat tour and prior to harvest, you could see little white tips of the heads, which indicates freeze damage. And so if you're out there harvesting a field of 40 bushels per acre or 60 bushels per acre, it's hard to quantify. If you didn't have freeze damage, would that be 43 bushels an acre or 63 bushels an acre? So I'm not sure that we can get a really good handle on that. It's just one of those things that chips away at the yield. I think we always say when you put wheat in the ground, you put the seed there, it starts with the yield potential of 150 bushels an acre, and then everything just chips away at it. And the weather in the central U.S. does a good job of that, and that freeze damage, I'm sure, had an impact. It's pretty hard to quantify the percentage on that. But I think the favorable weather we had in May, where we had some rain and some cool weather, we had a really good grain fill period for the wheat crop this year. While it was filling out those kernels, we had ideal weather. So that overcame a lot of it. It overcame a lot of the drought stress from early on in the spring, and it overcame some of that freeze damage.
Would you consider the harvest to be taking place statewide now from border to border?
Pretty much statewide, yeah, all the way to the northern border. I know there's some soft red winter wheat harvest going on in northeast Kansas, just northwest of Kansas City. The only part of the state where there probably isn't much harvest yet is the northwest cropping district of the state. But yeah, we're pretty well statewide.
With all the rain that took place, how much impact did that make on the test weights? Can you quantify that?
Test weights are holding up fairly well. Now we'll see what happens after the rain last night. You know, the test weights started in the 60 to 62, maybe 63 pounds. So that's really good. And every time you get rain on that, you might knock a little bit of a point off. So as widespread as the rain was and as ripe as the wheat is now, I think we're probably going to see those test weight numbers keep edging off a little bit. If there's some good news weather-wise, there doesn't look to be any rain after today for the foreseeable future. You know, it's one of those things again where, boy, the rain was beautiful last night because it ate away at the drought in southwest Kansas, but at the same time, you want a week or so of dry weather to get the harvest in. So we're a demanding lot, but I think the weather looks favorable for harvest after we get past today.
You were on the wheat tour. How far off do you think we are from the estimates from that wheat tour?
Well, the wheat tour, we were at 292 million bushels, if I remember correctly, and I think we're going to get past that. You know, I have a fair amount of confidence that we're going to be above that 300 million mark. So, you know, our rolling average is around 315 million bushels in Kansas. USDA notched their last number up a little bit, and I suspect in the next couple of reports they'll notch their number up too. So it is night and day over last year. You know, last year was our smallest harvest since 1966, closer to 200 million bushels. So if we can get 100 million bushel improvement over last year, that's a pretty good indicator. Not only has the weather been more favorable, but again, we got to credit the scientists, the wheat breeders who make these wheat varieties now, because they're outperforming what they should have given the weather situation they were under.
Well, I'm glad things are turning out all right, and appreciate the update there, Aaron. Good to visit with you again. Hopefully everybody can finish up harvest safe and maybe have some good results to go along with that. Aaron Harries, Vice President of Kansas Wheat, joining us today with an update on the Kansas wheat harvest here in 2024. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you for joining us. For producer Brianne Hendrickson, I'm Marlon Bowling. We'll catch you next time on the Comstock channel. Thanks for joining us on our Comstock YouTube channel. Don't forget you can also find us on Facebook and TikTok as well. Futures trading involves risk. The risk of loss in trading futures and or options is substantial, and each investor and or trader must consider whether this is a suitable investment. Past performance is not indicative of future results.